Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to cover with you a tier list of all the classes in Guild Wars 2 regarding War vs World Zerg fights. With Zerg fights I don't mean like 15 vs 15, which is considered like guild versus guild, but big Zergs fight, big blobs like 40 vs 40 or even more. So normally I am against the tier lists because everyone should play what it feels like playing, but if you are in an organized environment, you are supposed to use certain classes, and so since Secrets of the Obscure is almost at its end, the new expansion will drop on the next week, I want to have some closing thoughts about the meta and the best classes. The first class I want to cover is the good old Power Berserker. It used to be super meta back then, but it was nerfed a bit in the Greysword and some other classes outshined him, but still it's a very strong class and it performs really solidly. Also your elite skill, which is the War Banner, is huge and it can really turn the fights by stomping enemies or reviving allies. The damage is insane, but you need to stay really close, and during the downtime of your Berserker mode you are kinda useless, so you don't unleash any damage at all if you have no Berserker mode ready. But still this class has an insane burst and I would consider it not super strong like that it needs a nerf, but really okay and which performs kinda well almost all the time. So I would rank it in the A tier, strong classes who always perform well, but still there are better classes and I will get into them. The next class is the support Chronomancer. This class used to be super meta, like super strong, everyone wants to play it, everyone wants it in their squad, but still it was really hugely nerfed in the latest months, so the class was balanced. Like it was super strong and overpowered, now it is balanced and actually there are classes which can do better than it, but still it can provide unique utilities, for example like Illusion of Life, which can revive allies, and also you have the Veil, which is super unique way to stealth your Zerg, and also we have Time Warp, we have Stability, we have Null Field, which can remove conditions from allies and boons from enemies, we have Signets, we have Distortions, we have a lot of boons, like you can have Perma Quickness or Perma Alacrity on yourself and on your allies, you still provide barriers and healings. It's not super easy to classify this class, but I would say it's between A and B, like situational strong class. I mean, it's kinda bad, but still Chronomancer, I would consider it inferior to the A, which is strong classes who always perform well, but still 2 or 3 Chronomancer are always wanted in any Zerg, so you can really consider B or A depending on the situation. If you have like already 3 Chronomancer in a squad, I would say it's enough. You don't need that many Veils or Illusions of Life, because there are other support classes which can do better, but still you want some Chronomancer in your Zergs. And to divide it from the strong classes who always perform well in any number, I would say it's a tier B, but it's needed like a tier A. The next class is the support Scrapper. This class used to be super strong years ago, then it was nerfed, no one used to play it anymore, and then it was buffed again. This class is by far the strongest support at the moment. It provides an insane amount of condition cleanses while providing an insane amount of healing. The healing can be reached and maybe even surpassed, but the utility you can provide with a lot of super speed barriers and a lot of boons, and also you can walk around and passively remove conditions with, for example, your gyro, or just by pressing your skills around you. They just perform well, they are easy to use, they perform always basically well, you can move around, everything is big AoE, and even if you have nothing left to use, the auto attack on your med kit is super strong and can remove conditions. You have insane AoE healing, super speed again, as I already said, you have ranged options, melee options, you have survivability, you have dodges. It's by far the strongest class in my opinion. Also, the condition cleanses became more valuable because of the condition meta with the Celestial. Everyone plays a Celestial and applies a lot of conditions. I think this meta is a joke and it will pass really soon, but still in a meta like very condition heavy, a Condi Cleanser is always needed, and this is why some other classes were pushed back from the top. So in my opinion, this class should be considered S tier together with other classes, which I will cover in a second, but still this one is super strong and is noticeably stronger support class compared to other classes, for example the Druid, the Tempest, or the support Firebrand, and so on. So the first S tier class goes to the Scrapper. Then we have the Damage Power Catalyst. This class can unleash a lot of damage, but it's not really a burst damage, it's kinda slow to obtain. You can cast Double Meteor Shower, which is a huge skill, which is super strong against enemy Zergs, especially if they are really big and they stand still, but still you are not offering anything else to your Zerg and to your squad. You are kinda useless, you just unleash a lot of damage, and this damage is not really super fantastic like other classes can be, while also offering melee help, melee stacking, so you just need to stay super ranged alone and cast damage on enemies. So I would say you need like 2 or 3 catalysts per squad, maybe even less. So I would rank the catalyst in the B tier, which is in the B tier, sorry, situational strong classes, but I know it's in the same tier with the Chronomancer, but I would rank Chronomancer like B.5, so like Chronomancer a bit worse than the Berserker, but a bit better than the Catalyst. The Catalyst is noticeably worse than the Chronomancer, but I would not say the Catalyst is an almost unusable class. The next class is our beloved or hated Firebrand. Some people hate him because it's just too strong and meta since basically the beginning of this game and the beginning of Path of Fire. So this class recently had some switch towards the Celestial build. It's called the Celebrand. It will still provide a lot of stability. I don't have a gameplay of the Celebrand, by the way. It can provide a lot of stability while unleashing a lot of damage. Like, it's not an S tier damage, but I would say a B tier damage, maybe in between A tier or B tier, and also provides stability, ages, and conditions removal. But also, even if you play the Minstrel Firebrand, you will be wanted in any Zerg fight. I mean, this class is not noticeably stronger than other classes, but it's needed, like 1 Firebrand per party is needed. It can be Celestial or it can be Minstrel, you just need a Firebrand in any occasion. So I wouldn't say it's much better than other classes, but it's just unique and it's needed. So I would rank the Celestial Firebrand or the Minstrel Firebrand both in the A tier, together with the Berserker at the moment. Strong classes who always perform well. I know this could sound like they are not super meta, but I wouldn't rank the Firebrand in the S tier, because the S tier is for the classes which don't necessarily need a nerf, but still they perform much better than others. Firebrand is just super unique. There is nothing, no other classes can do what the Firebrand does, even the Chronomancer, which can provide a lot of stability. The Firebrand is unique. I wouldn't say it needs a nerf. Maybe it could use some nerfs in the damage aspect in the Celebrand build, but the Minstrel one is fine, and even the Celestial one I would classify and rank it in the A tier. It's time for the Soul Beast, a class which I used to love because you could spam a lot of immobilizes. You can still do it with some traits and some skills, but still there are better classes which can provide more immobilizes or equal number of immobilizes while still providing a lot of much more utilities and damage to the Zerg. So I would rank the Soul Beast, which sadly is super fun, like almost unusable to play. So the tier C, you can do some damage with this class, of course, but it's really situational and not so easy to land. Other classes are much easier to use and much higher reward at the same risk, basically. So I see no situations where I would prefer, for example, a Soul Beast to a Berserker or to a Holosmith or to other support damage builds, sorry. So I have to rank the Soul Beast in almost unusable classes. I wouldn't say it's situational because it's not a situational strong class. It's a bit below. But still, it can work. I mean, if you run like 10 Soul Beasts and you are still like 20 people more than the other Zerg, you can still win. I mean, it's not like super unusable, but still, I'm sorry to say to the lovers of the Soul Beast, but this class is just not good at the moment. It's time for the DR Scourge. The Scourge was basically the best DPS class some years ago because it could provide a lot of strips and a lot of damage very easily, and also it's very survivable and can provide AoE barriers. Then it was really nerfed and then it was buffed again, and a new build rose, and I basically invented that build like 1 year ago, the Celestial Scourge. Some people made fun of me, but it still works, it's meta, everyone plays it, is super strong and super wanted. You can unleash a lot of barriers to your allies, but most importantly, a lot of strips, basically like sustained strips. You don't have a single skill which can provide a lot of strips. You have many skills which can provide a lot of strips, so you are almost never out of strips. You have a really strong pull, you have boon conversion into the enemies with the Well of Corruption, and also the skill 4 on the Greatsword. You have your axe, some people run the Scepter, you have a decent amount of damage. You cannot compete with like Holosmiths, Berserkers, Dragon Hunters and so on, but still you are not 0 damage, you have a decent damage and a lot of strips most importantly. So I would rank this class into the tier A, which is strong classes who always perform well. You will have no problem finding a spot in the squad as a Scourge because everyone wants it. It's considered the meta boon stripper, and also it can deal a decent amount of damage. So Scourge, happy news for the Necromancer lovers, tier A. So one of the most important factor on the Scourge is that it can provide transfusion, which is your F4 skill, which can teleport downed allies to you, so you can save them from bad situation, and together with your Zerg you can hand revive them, and you can turn the fight. Really, you can save like up to 5 people per Scourge, so you just need to press F4 and then you press F to revive your allies, and this is a huge component in the Scourge. But still, if you have like 15 Scourges in the squad, please don't run transfusion on all of them, otherwise it just won't work. Have like 3, 4, 5 Scourges using transfusions, and the rest focus on the boon stripping, on the damage, on the barriers, but still don't run 15 transfusion in a single Zerg. I don't have a footage for this class. It's the Daredevil, Staff Daredevil. It can really be strong in guild versus guilds fights, smaller fights, but in a really big Zerg fights it just doesn't work. You are too squishy and the damage is not super easy to land, and it's like high risk, low reward. So I would rank this on almost unusable classes, but I would consider this worse than the Soul Beast. So like in between D and C, but D is like totally unplayable, and this one can be played, but it's super duper situational. So I would not recommend playing Daredevil in big Zerg fights. It's time for the Holosmith. I don't have footage of this class. I know it's considered the best DPS class, and this is why I would rank it in the S tier, noticeably stronger classes. It's like always top damage in every arc DPS, unless they are bad Holosmiths. Like you can hit up to like 20 or 25 enemies with your elite skill, and also every skill you have is big damage and is AoE. You can run the Flamethrower, which is a lot of damage everywhere around you, in front of you, to 3 targets, so your arc DPS will just explode if you run this class. And also this class has the best burst damage in the game. It also can surpass the Berserker if played well. It's still really squishy, but I cannot not consider this class meta, and S tier is just by far the best DPS class. Maybe it could use some nerfs, I don't know, but it performs noticeably better than other classes. I don't have footage, as I already said. I don't know why. I played it really unfrequently, and whenever I played it, I just was bad. Maybe I need more practice. I don't enjoy it so much like other classes, but still, it's one of the best classes right now. Together with the Scrapper, I would rank it on the S tier, no discussion. This is one of the newest classes, considered meta and played in every Zerg fight, in every party. It's the Celestial Renegade. I use some different weapons compared to the meta stuff, but still, whatever you play, the utilities are what matters the most, and the traits, of course. You can provide a lot of resistance, stability, a lot of boon strip, unblockable boon strip, and basically permanent alacrity while providing a decent amount of damage and CCs. The damage is like not comparable to Holosmiths, of course, and not even to the Scourges, but still you are not zero damage, and this class is used mostly for the stability and the resistance, and the alacrity, and the boon strip, and also the elite skill on your dwarf elite, which is a 50% damage reduction. So I would rank this class onto the A tier, which is strong classes who always perform well. I know it's super strong and needed, like a Firebrand. I would say we have, in every party, we should have a Firebrand and a Renegade, so maybe I should rank it in the S tier. No, because I don't feel it's overpowered. It's like you can do a bit of everything, but you are not the best at anything, basically. So I wouldn't say you are on S tier on the Renegade. I would rank it on the A tier. I have footage of this class, but it's the damage Mirage. This is one of the newest build together with the Renegade. It's a DPS class which can unleash a lot of damage with your ambush skill 1 on the greatsword. It's also a ranged skill, so you are very safe to play it. It's very survivable because you have this really high amount of dodges, and also the dodges doesn't stop you from doing damage and so on. Like, you don't waste time by dodging, because the dodges on the Mirage just work like that. This class, I would consider it A tier, but maybe it's like A and a half. I wouldn't say it's overpowered or needs nerfs or is noticeably stronger classes than others, but still I think it's a bit better than these other classes. I would rank it A because it's not S, but still it's A and a half. I would rank it in between the A and the S. It's time for the Power Reaper. This class can unleash a lot of damage if the enemies are super melee onto you, and if you manage to land your out attacks, the full chain of your out attack and the skill 4. You also have a really high amount of strips, comparable to the Scourges, while having a lot of damage. You don't have the same survivability, and you don't provide barriers, you don't have transfusion, you are just pure damage and pure boon strip, like you are pure death incarnate. Is super fun to play, super strong. I think like it was better in the past because there weren't other classes, but still the Reaper could use a little buff. I hope the Spear will provide a better damage option, because the Greatsword really sucks. The skill 4 and skill 5 are good on the Greatsword, but the other skills are kinda unusable because they are super melee and super slow. So I would say that the Reaper right now is somewhere between the A tier and B tier, so I would rank it on the A because B is a bit weaker. So like the Scourge, the Reaper, sorry, is not on par on these classes, so I would rank it like B and a half. These 5 other classes are much better, are a bit better, sorry. So Reaper is A tier, but it's a lower A tier, let's say lower A. Also, I know some people have been playing Celestial Reaper. I will not cover it in this video or in other future videos unless it gets buffed, because I think that build is complete dog shit. They run like completely joke utilities which weren't even buffed or boosted, like nothing changed, and some people started playing Celestial Reaper for no reason. It deals no damage, it can provide, yes, a lot of conditions, but they are useless conditions, and you can apply those conditions even if you are not Celestial, so I will just skip that build. It's time for the Dragon Hunter. The Dragon Hunter can be played both support and DPS. The build you are seeing is the support one, which I consider it a bit better than the DPS build. Like, you can perform better on a support Dragon Hunter compared to a DPS Dragon Hunter. Some people will not want a DPS Dragon Hunter in their squad because they want Holosmiths mostly, but still no one will say anything about a support Dragon Hunter. You can apply a lot of stability, a lot of blocks, and the F3 can really save your entire Zerg if played well. Like, let's say you have 5 DH, you can really save like up to 25 people with your F3, which lasts 5 seconds, it's unlimited blocks, And also you have your elite skill, which can reset the cooldown of the F3, so you have 5 more seconds of this huge block, and you can block everything and save your allies from all the damage and from all the conditions. And in the meanwhile, we have also the DPS Dragon Hunter, which is a bit worse in my opinion, because it doesn't have a lot of burst. You have the skill 2 on your hammer, okay, but it's kinda slow, it's not super easy to hit. And then you can also recharge your skill 2 with the hammer using the skill 4, but it's not really easy to land, and so maybe you will not reset your skill 2, which is your main damage dealer. Also, the hammer out attack was nerfed, so your symbol will not provide a lot of damage anymore. The greatsword has a good skill, which is the skill 2, but it has many small hits, so you can really scratch everyone in the enemy Zerg if they are moving. You can deal, for example, 1k to a guy, 1k to another, 1k to another again. So I would consider maybe the Dragon Hunter on the DPS variant on a lower A tier, somewhere in between A and B, and instead the support Dragon Hunter, I would rank it on the A tier. Again, I don't have footage of this class, it's the core support Elementalist. I played it a bit, I didn't record much of it. It can really be used to outcleanse basically every other class in the squad, but the heals are just too poor and the condition cleanses are not much more than the other classes. It can be a meme maybe, and it can be like to combat your enemy playing a lot of conditions. You can remove a lot of conditions with this class. You play fire, water and earth, so basically you just have to dodge around, blast and apply auras on your allies, and you can remove conditions. But still, I don't see any situation where I would prefer, for example, the core Elementalist to a Tempest, a Druid, or a Scrapper, or like other supports which can condition cleanses. So I would rank the core Elementalist support build on almost unusable classes. I don't have footage for this class either, and it's the Herald. The Herald was outshined a lot by the Vindicator and by the Renegade, so I don't see any situation where I could use a Herald. It can perform decently, but there are classes which can do more and can do better, so I wouldn't say the D tier, but C tier. Like, it can work, it can provide a lot of boons, it can unleash some decent amount of damage, but for the DPS aspect, I would run Vindicator all the way, because it has stronger traits and also the dodge can deal a lot of damage on the Vindicator. And for the support aspect, just go support Vindicator or any other support you see here. So Herald, sadly, which is super fun, on the C tier. The next class is the support heal Specter. Probably I need some more practice on this class, but I see almost no one plays it. Someone does. It can provide a lot of boons like permanent resistance, a lot of stability, a lot of heals, and basically infinite amount of barrier, but still it's kinda slow on the application. So I think it's strong, it needs really a proper gameplay by the player who use it, so I would rank it on almost unusable classes, sadly, but I think it can really have potential. Before I go on, please consider leaving a like if you like my videos and to show me your appreciation, and also leave a subscribe to the channel so you can help it grow, and also leave in the comment if you want to see a build which I didn't cover yet, but I included on this tier list, for example, like the EL Specter. If you want it in my videos to be shown to you in a build commentary and so on, let me know in the comments. Let's go on now. Now it's time for the new Tempest build, the Blastomancer. This build revolves its utilities and its healing and condition cleanses on the combo field blasts you provide. So the more blasts you provide, the more condi cleanses you have and the more heals you have. This class was buffed really recently and now it works. Like, it's comparable to the Druid, maybe a bit worse than the Druid, but still it can work. It's one of the best secondary support together with the Vindicator and with the Tempest, and it's the Tempest and with the Druid and with the Scrapper. But the Scrapper is a bit stronger in my opinion than every other support, so I would rank the heal support Tempest, the Blastomancer build, or even the Aura Share, it still works, on the A tier, it's a strong class who always perform well. You will be almost all the time top Condi classes. Maybe you can be below the Scrapper or the Druid sometimes, but still it really works. Oftentimes you are top healer also, so you can provide a lot of utilities, a lot of stability, a lot of super speed, a lot of CCs on the enemies, unblockable CCs also. So I would rank it on the A tier. Some people consider it a bit worse, maybe B tier. So let's say somewhere in between the A and the B. Personally, I would rank it into the A. Next class is the Power Damage Willbender. This class can unleash a lot of burst damage, and also it has a lot of cooldown reduction on their skill if used after the virtues, but still it's kinda slow and sloppy to use. Like it feels a bit slow. As you can see, you need to move around. You have a lot of forced movement around to reset your skills because the virtues are really slow in the cast. But still the damage is really strong if played properly, but still I would not say it can be considered better, for example, than the Dragon Hunter or other DPS classes which are in the A tier. So maybe I would rank it in the B tier and almost C tier, let's say somewhere in between the B and the C. I would consider the Catalyst and the Chronomancer better than the Willbender, so let's say it's a lower B tier on the Willbender. Now it's time for the Vindicator, both in the DPS build and in the support build. I would say the support build is a bit inferior to the DPS build because with all these conditions around, this class just cannot keep up alone as a secondary support. The healing are still really fantastic and probably top tier healing, but still the condition cleanses are far behind the Druid and the Tempest and the Scrapper. So I would say the support Vindicator is somewhere in between A and B tier, somewhere like here. It's inferior to the Tempest. I mean, it could be situational strong class on the support build, and instead if you play the DPS Vindicator, I would say it's tier A together with these other classes. The DPS is solid, you have also a lot of survivability with your dodges and a lot of damage, burst damage, sustained damage, and also it really works well if you have skill lag. If there are many people, you have skill lag, you just activate your Vengeful Hammers and you can spin damage around you just by surviving. So, to recap, DPS Vindicator, A tier, and if you play support Vindicator, it's probably right now on the B tier. The next class is the Power Virtuoso. It can provide a huge amount of boon strip, probably the best boon strip in the game, and also they are unblockable, they are really far ranged, so the enemies just cannot dodge these strips, but still the damage is just not there. Other classes are just much better than the Virtuoso in doing damage, and also the skill casting are a bit slow on the Virtuoso, and in melee situations you are kinda useless. You need to be ranged to unleash your strips from your F1 to your F5. So I would rank the Virtuoso. I mean, it's strong, it's fun, but it's just not comparable to other classes. So I would say it's somewhere in between the B and the C tier. Let's take it onto the B tier, let's be nice to him. But still it's somewhere in between situational and almost unusable, sadly, because it's super fun, but the damage numbers are simply not there, and it's fine because it's super ranged and unblockable. So if it also had super damage, it would be like SSSS tier. Don't have footage for this class, it's the Untamed. It can provide solid CCs and solid burst damage if you run it with the hammer and the greatsword, but still I will not see any situation where I would run this class, the Untamed, compared to other DPS classes like for example Holosmith and Berserker and Reaper, or Dragon Hunter and Mirage. So there are many other DPS classes which are better and easier to use. Also, this class is not easy at all, so I wouldn't rank it D because D is like unusable. This one I would say almost unusable, sadly, because it's really fun to play. Next up, another class which I don't have footage of, and it's the Weaver. The Weaver is a really strong DPS build. It's comparable to the Catalyst, but it doesn't have the double meteor shower, but it has other damage skills on the skill tree thanks to the Weaver unique characteristic and feature, so I would rank it in the B tier. It can deal similar damage to the Catalyst. In my opinion, Weaver is a bit worse than Catalyst, but I saw many Weavers playing really well and doing similar damage, if not more, than the Catalyst, so I wouldn't dare classing the Weaver into the C tier, but I think it's situational strong class, so tier B. Next up, we have the support Spellbreaker and also DPS Spellbreaker. Let's start from the support Spellbreaker. This class was recently buffed again. It received multiple buffs in the last month, so I think it became competitive as a secondary support. Still, the condition cleanses cannot be compared to Druid, Scrapper and Tempest. It is inferior, but I think it's better than the Vindicator. And also, this class is a bit hybrid. It can unleash a huge amount of Boon Strip, comparable to Scourge, if not better, in longer fights, especially if you can use your ultimate twice, if your elite skill twice. Also, you have Break Stun, basically permanent resistance, a lot of healing. The Scourge has almost no healing, it has some barriers, but this one basically has a lot of barriers, a lot of Boon Strip, a lot of resistance, a lot of boons all around, and also a lot of survivability, a lot of heals. So I think the Spellbreaker on the support variant should be classified as an A tier, so strong classes who always perform well. This class will never let you down. Sorry, this was the Core Warrior, the Spellbreaker I meant. And also I covered a DPS build for the Spellbreaker, but I would say it's much inferior to the support one. So if you play my DPS build on the Spellbreaker, I would rank it on the situational strong classes. The damage is not fantastic, but if you are on melee, is super strong on the damage and even on the Boon Strip. Like, the damage cannot be compared to other classes on the A tier, but still you have also the Boon Strip. But I mean, if you want, instead of the support Spellbreak, of the damage Spellbreaker, you can bring us a Reaper, which is more damage and basically similar strips. So I would rank the DPS Spellbreaker as a B, the support Spellbreaker as an A. But still, the support Spellbreaker cannot Condi cleanses his party alone. Also, since I was dragging the Core Warrior onto the tier list, let's talk about it. I covered it like 2 months ago. It can provide solid healing, but I cannot see any situation where I would prefer this class to other support classes. I mean, the Condi cleanses is decent. We have the War Banner as elite skill. You have huge heals, one of the best healing in the game basically, but the condition cleanses are almost similar to the Spellbreaker, and in the meanwhile we have 0 Boon Strips, so it's like an inferior version of any other support build while providing also 0 Boon Strip. So I would rank it as a C class, almost unusable class. It can work, it's fun if you are playing casually, but in a proper environment, in a proper Zerg fight, I would not recommend Core Support Warrior. It's time for the Druid now. The Druid is a super strong secondary support together with the Scrapper, Tempest and other secondary supports I covered in this video. So this build can provide a lot of AoE reses if you have the elite skill Spirit. Otherwise, you have a lot of stability and condition cleanses with the other utility and elite skill, which is the Glyph of Star. You have a huge amount of healing, a huge amount of regeneration, the best regeneration in the game. So you also have your pets, which can provide decent AoE skills like Shake It Off on the bear. We have a lot of healing on the staff, and the Celestial Avatar is just super strong to heal, and also it has immobilizes. I saw some people playing it Celestial with more immobilizes in the utilities. I think it can work, it's fine, but still I am a Minstrel lover. I am fan of the full support Druid, so I would rank the full support Druid in the A tier, and maybe it's 8.5. I mean, the best support overall is the Scrapper, then I consider the Druid a bit lower than the Scrapper, and then a bit lower again I consider the Tempest. So let's say Scrapper is superior to the Druid and the Druid is superior to the Tempest, but they are really close, so they are all good and they are A class, strong classes who always perform well. Next, I have the Core Guardian, so without any expansions. This class can be played support or damage. The damage build is basically unusable because it all revolved about around the hammer, and the hammer was nerfed. The auto attack is not worth it anymore, and I don't see the damage Core Guardian being superior to any other DPS build. And in the meanwhile, also the Dragon Hunter support build became alive basically, and the support Core Guardian, which had basically the same intent, the same purpose, just became unusable because the Dragon Hunter on the support build is just better. You have the F3 spamming stability on your allies, and in the meanwhile you can also spam the blocks on your allies. You can block everything if you are in front of your allies with your F3 on the Dragon Hunter. So this class is obsolete at the moment, so I would say almost unusable because it's not super bad, but still, even if you play DPS, maybe DPS is the D tier, but if you play the support build, you can still do your job. You can provide heals, cleanses and stability. So the support Core Guardian is a C tier, almost unusable because like it's good, but there are classes which are much better, so why take this? No reason. Next up, we have the Power Harbinger. I really like this class. It has an insane burst damage, but it's like super squishy, and even the damage is not fantastic, so I don't see any situation where I would prefer this class over every other DPS class. Like, just go for the Reaper, I guess. The skill 4 and the skill 3 in the Harbinger Shroud are super strong, super burst damage, but still you are really squishy and they are forced movement. You see, I need to use this and I can take all the damage from the enemies in the meanwhile, so I would not recommend this. And the same goes for the Core Necromancer, which I used to cover in this channel, and like there are just better classes. So I mean, it can work, it can deal AoE damage, but I would rank the Core Necromancer on the D tier because the C tier are better, and the Harbinger maybe on the C tier, but it's a close fight between them. And then, sadly, for the other classes, which you see here, they are all the D tier. The Deadeye is unusable, the Core Engineer is unusable, the Mechanist is unusable, Core Mesmer maybe can work, but I mean, there is no situation where it's better than these classes on the tier C. The Core Ranger, the same. Core Thief should be on the tier E, it doesn't exist. And then the Core Renegade, the same. And then we have the Bladesworn, which has a lot of potential, in my opinion, as a support, but its mechanics all revolves around the F1, the F2 to do damage. So sadly, I need to rank also the Bladesworn on the tier D. Okay guys, this was all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a bit long video. It's a different format compared to the other I did in the past. I almost never do tier lists, but since the expansion is next week, I wanted to have some closing thoughts about the tier and the meta classes right now. Please, before watching this table at the end of the video, consider also hearing what I say in the video. There are classes in the same tier, but I consider some classes a bit better than other classes, even if the same tier. For example, Druid and Tempest are in the same tier, but I consider Druid a bit superior. So please don't start flaming in the comment, this class is better, this class is worse. This is on my personal experience, my personal opinion, and overall consensus from almost everyone in the game. Thank you for watching, leave a like and a subscribe if you already didn't, and have a great night, and see you on to Jantir's Wilds.